Dear listeners, welcome to the fourth story in the Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes, The Adventure of the Gloria Scott. This is a very special and deeply personal story. It is the tale of Sherlock Holmes's very first case, the adventure that first revealed his extraordinary powers of deduction and set him on the path to becoming the greatest consulting detective the world has ever known. Narrated by Dr. John H. Watson, this story takes us back in time to Holmes's university days and then to the windswept coast of Norfolk, where an old friend's desperate plea uncovers a dark and terrible secret from the past. It is a gripping tale of a notorious convict ship, a bloody mutiny at sea, betrayal, blackmail, and a cryptic message that holds the key to a tragedy that haunted a man for 30 years. From the peaceful quadrangles of university life to the stormy deck of the Gloria Scott and the quiet manor house in Norfolk, every mysterious letter, every hidden past, every moment of tension, every crashing wave, and every brilliant deduction will be brought to life here in rich, vivid, and extended detail. So sit back, dim the lights if you can, and travel with me into one of the most foundational and haunting adventures of Sherlock Holmes. The game is afoot. Opening scene, a quiet evening in Baker Street. It was a quiet summer evening in the year 1893. The gas lamps in Baker Street had just been lit, casting a warm golden glow through the windows of 221B. I, Dr. John H. Watson, sat comfortably in my armchair by the fire, enjoying a pipe and watching my friend Sherlock Holmes as he paced restlessly across the room. Holmes had been in one of his contemplative moods all evening. Suddenly, he stopped pacing, turned to me, and said in a thoughtful voice, "Watson, you have often asked me about my early days, how I first began my work as a consulting detective. Today, I think the time has come to tell you about my very first case. It was a strange affair, and it taught me more about the art of deduction than any lecture or book ever could." At that very moment, the front door bell rang sharply downstairs. A few moments later, Mrs. Hudson ushered in a visitor, a tall, hearty, ruddy-faced man of about 35, with a cheerful, open manner and bright, honest eyes. He introduced himself as Mr. Victor Trevor. Holmes greeted him with genuine warmth. "Victor Trevor, it has been many years since our university days. What brings you to London after all this time?" Mr. Trevor's cheerful expression quickly faded. He sat down heavily and said with visible distress, "Holmes, I am in the greatest trouble of my life. My father is dying, and I believe a terrible secret from his past has finally caught up with him. I desperately need your help." Victor Trevor's tragic story. Victor Trevor explained that his father, old Mr. Trevor, was a strong, broad-shouldered man who had made his fortune in the goldfields of Australia. He had returned to England many years ago, bought a fine estate called Donathorpe in Norfolk, and lived a peaceful life. But a few days earlier, his father had received a mysterious letter. After reading it, the old man had suffered a severe stroke and was now lying unconscious, fighting for his life. The letter contained only a few seemingly innocent lines. "The supply of game for London is going steadily up. Headkeeper Hudson, we believe, has been now told to receive all orders for flypaper and for preservation of your hen pheasant's life." This harmless-looking message had terrified the old man beyond reason. Victor Trevor believed there was a dark and dangerous secret in his father's past, and he begged Holmes to come down to Norfolk immediately to investigate. The journey to Donathorpe. Holmes and I agreed without hesitation. The very next day, we traveled by train to Norfolk and then by carriage through the beautiful but lonely countryside to Donathorpe. The house was a fine old manor standing in its own park, with a lake and pleasant gardens. But an atmosphere of gloom hung over it now. Old Mr. Trevor lay in his bed, paralyzed and barely conscious. His face was twisted with fear even in his unconscious state. Holmes began his investigation at once. He carefully examined the mysterious letter, studying the paper, the handwriting, and the postmark. Using his deep knowledge of codes and ciphers, Holmes revealed the true hidden message. "The game is up. Hudson has told all. Fly for your life." This confirmed that someone from Mr. Trevor's past, a man named Hudson, was blackmailing him and threatening to expose a terrible secret. The dark confession, the story of the Gloria Scott. With great difficulty, old Mr. Trevor regained enough strength to speak. In a weak, trembling voice, he told Holmes and his son the full, shocking story of his past, a story he had hidden for 30 long years. Many years earlier, as a young man named James Armitage, he had been convicted of forgery and sentenced to transportation aboard the convict ship Gloria Scott, bound for Australia. The ship was a floating hell, overcrowded, filthy, and guarded by brutal officers. On board, Armitage met a dangerous and charismatic criminal named Jack Prendergast. Prendergast had secretly organized a mutiny. With the help of several convicts and even some corrupt crew members, they seized control of the ship in a bloody and violent uprising. Most of the officers and loyal sailors were killed. But just as the mutineers were about to escape in the ship's boats, a government vessel appeared on the horizon. In panic, Prendergast and a few others escaped in a small boat. The Gloria Scott was deliberately blown up by the remaining mutineers to destroy all evidence. James Armitage was one of the few survivors. He changed his name to Trevor, made a fortune in the Australian goldfields, and returned to England to live an honest and respectable life. But now, one of the survivors, the brutal sailor Hudson, had tracked him down and was demanding money in exchange for silence. The tragic end and Holmes's final deduction a few days later, old Mr. Trevor suffered another stroke and died peacefully. Before his death, he left a long letter for his son revealing the complete truth. Hudson, furious that his blackmail demands were not fully met, had sent the coded warning letter that caused the fatal shock. Holmes explained that the case was a classic example of how the sins of the past can return to haunt even the most respectable lives. He had deduced the hidden message in the letter and the connection to a convict ship from small clues in Mr. Trevor's behavior and the peculiar wording of the note. Closing narration. And so, dear listeners, ended the extraordinary case of the adventure of the Gloria Scott, the very first case of Sherlock Holmes. It revealed how a young university student with a natural gift for observation first discovered his true calling as a detective. It also showed the long, dark shadow that past crimes can cast over even the most respectable lives. Old Mr. Trevor died, with his secret finally revealed to his son. Hudson disappeared and was never heard from again. Victor Trevor later sold the estate and moved to the colonies to start a new life far from the painful memories. Holmes later told Watson that this early case taught him the importance of patience, careful observation, and understanding the hidden motives of human nature, lessons that shaped him into the legendary detective we know today. Thank you for listening to this detailed and extended audiobook narration of the adventure of the Gloria Scott, the fourth story from the Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, share, and turn on notifications. The game is always afoot, and we shall return with more thrilling adventures of Sherlock Holmes very soon.